always thought the most dangerous moments in life were the ones you could see coming. The arguments, the storms, the obvious threats. But I was wrong. Sometimes the things that change your entire world arrive quietly, softly, like a whisper. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday evening around 7 p.m. I was washing the dishes, humming to myself, thinking about the weekend, thinking about nothing special at all. My son, Liam, was sitting at the kitchen table doodling dinosaurs in his notebook. Then I heard the quiet sound of his chair scraping against the floor. He walked slowly toward me. Too slowly for a 7-year-old boy who usually moved like a hurricane, and he tugged on my sleeve. I remember drying my hands on a towel and kneeling down to his height, thinking maybe he wanted a snack or he'd had a bad dream the night before and needed reassurance. But instead, he leaned forward, looked over his shoulder as if making sure we were alone, and whispered words that made my entire body go cold. "Mom, don't trust Dad." Froze. My heart thudded so loudly it drowned out everything else. "Sweetheart," I whispered back, trying to keep my voice steady. "Why would you say something like that?" He swallowed hard. His little hands were trembling. "I heard him talking on the phone," he whispered. He said he was almost ready. And that you wouldn't see it coming." I felt the room tilt for a moment. The air suddenly grew thick. "Ready for what?" I asked. But before Liam could say another word, we both heard the sound of the front door opening. My husband, Daniel, walked in with his usual smile. Except this time, for the first time, I wondered if the smile was real. His eyes flicked from me to Liam, and for a second something sharp, something calculating, flashed in his expression. And that was the moment I realized something I had never wanted to believe. My son wasn't lying. Something was wrong. Very, very wrong. And I didn't yet know it. But Liam's whisper had just saved me from the biggest betrayal of my life. For years, I thought Daniel and I had what people called a quiet marriage. Not perfect, not passionate, but stable. Predictable. We met in college, married at 26, bought a small house, built a predictable routine, raised our son in a neighborhood where nothing unusual ever happened. That was the life Daniel wanted. A life with no interruptions, no surprises, no changes. And for a while, I convinced myself I wanted the same. But looking back, I can see the truth clearly now. I mistook Daniel's controlling behavior for stability. I mistook his coldness for maturity. I mistook his secrecy for independence. And I mistook my own exhaustion for love. Still, until that evening, until Liam's whisper, I had no reason to believe Daniel was capable of anything more than being distant. But now every moment, every memory, every little thing I had ignored, came rushing back like puzzle pieces snapping into place. The late-night phone calls he always took outside. The unexplained trips for work. The new lock he installed on his home office for security. The sudden irritation whenever I asked harmless questions. And most of all, the way he had recently been extra polite to me, overly accommodating, as if rehearsing something. Once you begin to doubt someone, everything seems suspicious. That night after dinner, I watched him closely. The way he avoided meeting my eyes. The way he paused before answering simple questions. The way he smiled too quickly, too widely. And the way he ruffled Liam's hair, almost as if performing for an invisible audience. At bedtime, I tucked Liam in and whispered, "Did Daddy hear you say anything today?" He shook his head. "No. But I'm scared, Mom." My heart clenched. I kissed his forehead and promised gently, "You did the right thing telling me." But inside, fear was blooming like wildfire. And I knew I had to figure out the truth. Not tomorrow. Not later. Tonight. I waited until Daniel was in the shower. He always sang in the shower, loudly, which bought me a few minutes of time. My hands were shaking as I walked into his home office. The lock. The new one. It stared back at me like a warning. But I wasn't turning back. Not anymore. I tried the doorknob. I tried pressing my ear against the door. Nothing. I tried the window next. Locked from inside. For a moment I almost gave up. But then, I remembered something. Daniel kept the spare office key hidden somewhere only he thought he knew. And suddenly it came back to me. 3 months earlier, I had seen him slip something behind the bookshelf when he thought I wasn't watching. My hands moved with a mix of intuition and desperation as I slid my fingers along the back edge of the shelf. Nothing. And click. A loose wooden panel shifted slightly. Behind it, small metallic key. My pulse roared in my ears. I tiptoed back to the office door, inserted the key, prayed he wouldn't suddenly step out of the shower, and turned it. Click. The door opened. And what I found inside left me frozen. Daniel's office had always been off limits, but I had expected nothing more than paperwork, bills, maybe a few personal items. Something boring. Something ordinary. But what I saw was neither. The room looked like a second life, one he lived without me. There were folders stacked neatly on the desk, a whiteboard filled with scribbles and arrows, printed messages, dates, phone numbers, and a timeline. An actual timeline. At the top of the board, in bold black marker, were 3 words. Final steps soon. My breath hitched. Final steps. Toward what? I moved closer. My hands trembling, I scanned the papers, reading fragments of conversations printed from phone logs. There were photos of me, taken without my knowledge. The grocery store. At Liam's school. In the backyard. I felt a wave of nausea. What is this? I whispered. Then I noticed an envelope labeled with my name. I opened it slowly. Inside was a list. A list of assets. The house. Daniel's bank accounts. My bank account. My life insurance policy. Custody details. And a note in Daniel's handwriting. Everything will be cleaner this way. No loose ends. My knees almost gave out. Loose ends. Me. Could barely breathe. Why was he planning my financial life without me? Why was he collecting surveillance photos of me? Why did he need a timeline? Why was he talking to someone about being ready? Then I saw the messages printed beside the documents. All from a single unknown number. Messages like, "She has no idea. Almost done. Everything is in place. Just stick to the plan." And the worst one. "After this week, she won't be a problem." I staggered backward. This wasn't just betrayal. This wasn't just secret planning. This wasn't just a mistake. This was preparation. Deliberate, organized preparation for something that involved me being removed from Daniel's life. Permanently. I grabbed the papers, my heart bursting with fear. I took photos of every document using my phone. And then, just as I slid the papers back into place, I heard the shower turn off. I spun around, slipped out of the office, locked the door, put the key back, and ran to the kitchen, pretending to wipe the countertop. Seconds later, Daniel walked in. "Everything okay?" he asked casually, drying his hair with a towel. I forced a smile. Of course. But inside, I felt like I was standing on thin ice, watching cracks spread in all directions. I didn't know what Daniel's plan was yet. I didn't know when he meant to act. I didn't know how far he would go. But I knew one thing. I couldn't trust him. Not anymore. And my son had known before I did. That night I barely slept. Every sound in the house made me flinch. Every time Daniel shifted beside me in bed, I wondered if he knew I'd been in his office. By morning I had made a decision. One that terrified me. I needed answers. Real ones. So after dropping Liam at school, I drove to a quiet cafe and opened my phone, rereading the screenshots I had taken of Daniel's documents. First, I searched the unknown number. Nothing. But when I searched the number through a reverse lookup site, something came up. Name. A woman's name. Rachel W. I felt my jaw clench. I had never heard of her before. But her messages with Daniel were frequent, emotional, and coded. I scrolled through the screenshots again and saw one message at the very bottom, one I had missed in the panic last night. It read, "Make sure she signs the papers before the event. If she doesn't, we'll have a problem." Papers. What papers? I knew then I needed to go deeper. So I went to the courthouse. I walked up to the records counter, my throat dry, and said, "I need to check if there are any recent filings under the name Daniel Harris." The clerk typed, clicked, typed again. Frowned. There is something, she said. Filed 2 weeks ago. She slid the document toward me. I felt my blood go cold. It was a petition for divorce. Filed secretly. Filed while sleeping next to me. Filed while kissing our son goodnight. Filed while pretending everything was fine. And the petition claimed I was mentally unstable. It requested full custody for him. It claimed I was a danger to myself and my child. And it claimed I had agreed to sign a settlement. I stared at the document, my hands shaking violently. I never agreed to anything. I never knew about anything. Daniel was building a case. Manufacturing lies. Preparing to tear my entire life away from me. But why? Why go this far? My heart was pounding, and then, out of nowhere, a possibility struck me so hard I almost fell over. My life insurance policy. A policy Daniel insisted we take out, for the family's future. A policy that would pay out a massive sum. To him. I felt the world tilt. Daniel was planning to erase me. On paper and in real life. And suddenly every message, every warning, every whisper made horrifying sense. My son hadn't just saved me from betrayal. He had saved me from a plan to replace me. I drove home in silence, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my fingers hurt. But fear wasn't the only thing rising in me now. Anger. Determination. Clarity. He thought he could outsmart me. He thought he could erase me. He thought I would never fight back. He was wrong. When I walked into the house, Daniel was sitting at the dining table, sipping coffee like nothing was wrong. "Morning, honey," he said, smiling in that rehearsed way. "Morning," I replied, returning a smile I didn't feel. He watched me closely. Too closely. As if searching for a crack in my mask. I forced myself to play the perfect wife. Polite. Predictable. Inside I was planning. Step 1. Collect evidence. Step 2. Protect my son. Step 3. Expose Daniel without him realizing he'd already lost. Step 4. Make sure he could never hurt us again. That afternoon, while Daniel was at work, I packed Liam's essentials in a small backpack and left it hidden in my car. Things went bad, we needed to be able to run. Next, I printed every screenshot, every document, every message. I stored them in a folder labeled Liam's School Projects. A place Daniel would never touch. Then I contacted 2 people. My best friend, Jenna, and a lawyer recommended by a domestic support group hotline. Both agreed to help immediately. Finally, I set up cameras, small ones, hidden in places Daniel wouldn't notice. Because if he was planning an event, I needed to know when he was going to strike. And I didn't have to wait long. 2 nights later, Daniel walked into the living room holding an envelope. He smiled warmly. Too warmly. "Babe," he said softly. "Can we talk?" My heart raced. This was it. The moment everything turned. The moment he tried to get me to sign the papers. The moment his plan would take its final steps. Daniel handed me the envelope. "What's this?" I asked, pretending confusion. "Just paperwork," he said. "Something we should finalize before the weekend. Just sign it when you can." I opened the envelope slowly. And there it was. A settlement agreement. One that handed him everything. Oaths, finances, custody. And underneath the signature line were the words. Signed freely and willingly. I looked up at him. He was smiling. And then I knew. He thought he had already won. But he had no idea the trap was already closing around him. The next morning I woke up early, packed Liam's lunch, and drove him to school, hugging him a little longer than usual. "Remember," I whispered, "you're safe. And I love you." Then I drove straight to my lawyer's office. We finalized my counteraction. A full legal case against Daniel for fraud, endangerment, coercion, and premeditated parental alienation. We attached the evidence I had collected, including the messages, documents, photos, and the hidden camera footage that now showed Daniel rehearsing his lines, practicing what he planned to tell me, telling Rachel on the phone he was ready to finish it. The lawyer nodded slowly. "This is enough to protect you," she said. And enough to expose him. But we had to move fast. Daniel's event could be days or hours away. So we arranged a plan. I would confront him. Calmly, strategically, but not alone. The police would be on standby. My lawyer would be listening through an open phone line. And the evidence folder would already be filed. I drove home shaking, breath shallow, palms sweating. Daniel's car was already in the driveway. He was home early. I stepped inside and found him standing in the kitchen, holding a mug of coffee, staring at me with an expression I had never seen before. Cold, flat, expectant. "Did you sign the papers?" he asked. I swallowed. "No." His jaw clenched. "Why not?" he asked, stepping closer. I took a slow breath. "I have some questions first." His eyes narrowed. "What questions?" I pulled a single sheet of paper from my bag, the printed message that read, "After this week, she won't be a problem." Daniel went pale. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. "I don't know what that is," he said too quickly. "You're overreacting. You're imagining things." I nodded slowly. "I see." Then I placed the entire folder of evidence on the table. His face changed instantly. Fear. Rage. His mask shattered. "What the hell is this?" he hissed. "Proof," I said softly. "Of everything." He grabbed the folder, flipping through the pages, face draining of color. "You went through my office," he demanded. I met his eyes. "Yes. And I know everything." He slammed his fist on the table. "You ruined everything," he spat. "No," I said calmly. "I stopped you." Daniel stepped toward me. But before he could speak again, there was a loud knock on the door. 3 knocks. Firm. Authoritative. Daniel froze. I didn't. "I invited them," I said quietly. He opened the door. 2 officers stood there. "Mr. Harris," one of them said. "We need to talk." Daniel's face twisted into disbelief, then fury. "This is ridiculous," he growled, pointing at me. "She's unstable. She's lying." One officer held up a document. "Sir, we have recordings, printed evidence, and a filed complaint. You need to come with us." Daniel's breath quickened. He looked at me with pure venom. "You'll regret this," he hissed. But I didn't flinch. I didn't look away. I didn't break. "Goodbye, Daniel," I said. The officers guided him out of the house. And for the first time in months, I finally let myself breathe. The house felt silent after Daniel was gone. Too silent. I collapsed onto the couch, tears I had been holding back finally spilling over. Relief, fear, exhaustion. But the story didn't end there, because people like Daniel never accept losing easily. The next day, a message arrived from an unknown number. "You think you won. But this isn't over." I didn't respond. I forwarded it straight to my lawyer. By afternoon we secured a restraining order, emergency custody for me, a freeze on all joint accounts, a legal protection for Liam and myself. Daniel tried to file counterclaims, but every time he did, our evidence crushed them instantly. He had dug his own grave with his lies. Within weeks, the judge reviewed everything and gave his ruling. Full custody to me. Financial restitution. Daniel restricted to supervised visitation. And a legal record of coercion, manipulation, and premeditation. Rachel, the woman he had plotted with, disappeared completely. She never showed up in court. She never contacted Daniel again. And one evening, Liam walked up to me and said, "I knew you'd protect us, Mom." I hugged him so tightly he giggled. "Always," I whispered. "Always." Months passed. The house grew peaceful again. Bright again. Safe again. Liam slept better. I slept better. The air felt lighter. One night, while tucking my son into bed, he looked at me and asked, "Mom, are we okay now?" I brushed his hair gently and nodded. "Yes, sweetheart. We're safe." He smiled softly. "I knew you'd believe me." And that sentence broke something in me, in a good way. 'Cause the truth is, Children see things adults ignore. Children feel things adults explain away. Children sense danger long before we do. Liam's whisper saved us. His fear opened my eyes. And his courage pushed me to protect our future. I learned something powerful through all this. Trust your instincts. Trust your truth. And sometimes, trust the smallest voice in the room. Because the quietest warning might be the one that saves your life.